Are you ready for the weirdest flight map in Africa? Cabo Verde, a small African island chain, flies to 3 countries in Africa and 10 in Europe. This is part 7 of ranking countries based on how many places they fly to directly. First up is Ecuador, which surprises me with the lack of South American destinations. Otherwise, it visits similar countries to the others in its region. Niger has a rare flight to Libya, as well as splitting the rest of its flights between North and West Africa, and leaving the continent for the usual suspects Turkey and France. Zambia and Zimbabwe, the only 2 countries starting with Z, both fly to 9 of the same 12 destinations. Zambia's unique flights are UAE, Qatar, and the DRC, while Zimbabwe flies to Mozambique, Eswatini, and Namibia. The majority of Sudan's flights are around the Arab world, with the remaining heading to Eritrea, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Uganda. As mentioned before, Cabo Verde heads to 3 countries in Africa and 10 in Europe. I was confused by this at first, so I did a little research, and it turns out that Cabo Verde is a little bit closer to Europe historically and culturally than to Africa. Additionally, tourism makes up between 25 and 40% of its economy, so it makes sense to have more flights to Europe. Cambodia flies to every country in Southeast Asia besides Brunei and Timor-Leste. Additionally, it goes to UAE, India, China, and South Korea. Nepal has some overlap to Cambodia, but hits much more of the Arabian Peninsula. It also flies to Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Japan. The best way to sum up Turkmenistan's flight path is a surprising amount of flights to Europe and a surprising lack of flights to the other stands. Kyrgyzstan visits most of the other stands, but notably doesn't visit Tajikistan because of a border dispute. The most interesting flight is one over to Croatia. After digging into this one, it turns out to be a budget South Korean airline who couldn't make it all the way back to South Korea because of their inability to fly over Russian airspace. Therefore, the best option was to make a stop in Kyrgyzstan. Eventually, I imagine that flight will just go Seoul to Zagreb, but for right now, it's going to stop in Kyrgyzstan. That's all for part 7. I'll see you in part 8.